All right, yeah, thank you. Definitely, this is something that has been in the news since Bill Maher's show last week and the whole flap between him and Sam Harris and then Ben Affleck and everybody else on that panel. And it's kind of exploded onto the scene here, so I felt like it's something that we really should discuss. So first and foremost, I just want to basically, come to an agreement on what Islamophobia means. And basically, what it means is that you have a prejudice or irrational fear towards Muslims, or more importantly, too, people that are perceived to be Muslims. So this could even extend out to, other Arab people, or even people who wear turbans or clothing that is similar to that of Muslims. So even if they're perceived to be Muslims, you have some kind of animosity towards them just because of that fact. Now, this word certainly does create a lot of confusion because, the root of the word is Islam, Islamophobia, and that sounds like, oh, you have a fear of Islam, the belief system, the religion, but that's really not what it is. It sounds more like Muslimophobia. So I think that first and foremost adds to a lot of the confusion. But beyond that, it also gets twisted all the time into this thing where people will try to call you racist if you try to speak out against the religion of Islam and say that you're attacking a race or you're attacking people, which simply isn't true. And so basically, this word just gets overused, and it's slapped onto people kind of like playing the race card, and it's not cool that way. So you find yourself always having to explain yourself like, Sam Harris and Bill Maher were, and of course, Ben Affleck wasn't really listening to what they had to say. He was just kind of immediately had that knee-jerk reaction. And, obviously Muslims aren't a race. It's a religion. It's a belief system that you choose to believe in. And anybody of any race can be Muslim. There's Arab Muslims, there's Asian Muslims, African, American, whatever, you name it. Anybody can be a Muslim. So, let's just get that out of the way first and foremost. Now, Islamophobia is a real phenomenon. It's something that actually exists, but not the way that it's often portrayed by people. Certainly, especially among, evangelical, like conservative Christians in the United States, they have this animus towards Muslims or anybody who they perceive to be Muslim just immediately. And this kind of feeling is stoked by media outlets like Fox News and Glenn Beck and Brian Fisher of the American Family Association, some other outlets as well. And some examples that I've seen of Brian Fisher, he said things in the past, even recently, like we should ban all immigration of all Muslims to the United States, or we should ban the construction of all new mosques in the United States, and we shouldn't allow Muslims to serve in the military. And obviously that's a problem because, we're a free country, and the very first amendment to the Constitution is freedom of religion, so we can't be doing those things. So certainly we can disagree with Islam and we can criticize the idea of Islam, but we can't be stripping people's rights away just because they believe something. And so that's a problem. And, that's something that I covered in a recent video that I did called Do Secularists Pick on Christians and while Coddling Muslims, to kind of cover that. And because a lot of times we get accused of always focusing on Christianity, and it seems like we're protecting Muslims when really we're just trying to fight for their rights under the law and freedom and equality to practice their beliefs. So, and there's been a lot of other examples about this kind of stuff too going on. There was recently an example, I don't recall where it was, but I think it was a 7th grade class somewhere, and they had an assignment to create a pamphlet that they would basically present to like a 3rd grader to explain to them what Islam is. So basically the teacher just wanted them to cover all the basic points, that you could explain what Islam is to like a younger child. So just basically simplify it. And some parent completely flipped out and made a big fuss about it, and it was all over Facebook. And then she had all these meetings with the administration and the teachers and all this, and of course immediately it was like, oh, you're promoting Islam. But that wasn't the case. It was like a world history or a social studies class, and there was just an assignment to learn about the basic beliefs of Muslims and where they live in that. I'm sure they covered other major religions as well, but of course it always gets blown up. There's been other incidents of things like this in the past. Like I know in Texas there was one instance where a class dressed up in like traditional Arab Muslim garb, and of course a bunch of Christians freaked out over that. but basically they're just learning about the culture, and that's important. It's important to know because religion plays such a role in the world, in politics, and in things that happen. So it's important to understand what people believe, where they live, and what their culture is. And there was another example within the last couple of years too, and it was something that Todd Starnes covered, of course, where there was a high school in Colorado where they had like some kind of multicultural club, and they recited the Pledge of Allegiance in Arabic, and they did it in other languages too. They did it in like Spanish and other languages, but of course, as soon as they did it in Arabic and they translated God properly into Arabic as Allah, which is the word for God, everybody flipped out. All of a sudden, it's a Muslim thing, and of course, there was a big, dust up over it. But when they translated God to like Dio in Spanish, nobody had a problem. But suddenly you make it Allah, and all of a sudden it's a Muslim thing. So never mind the fact that not all Muslims speak Arabic, and that Allah is just the translation of a word. But so basically all these kind of things exemplify that Islamophobia is very much a real phenomenon. But it definitely does get bastardized and overused, and so that's, I think, why there's all this confusion.